What if I were to tell you that the gravest economic warning signal for America isn't flashing red from the rising power of China, nor the geopolitical ambitions of Russia, nor even the unpredictable volatility of Wall Street's financial titans? The truly alarming message is quietly emanating from an unexpected corner of the globe: Japan. Consider Japan for a moment, a nation globally renowned for its prosperity, its unwavering stability, a country that, by all conventional measures, seemed to execute every economic maneuver flawlessly. Yet, despite doing everything right, Japan finds itself inexorably trapped in a decades-long quagmire of spiraling national debt, persistent economic stagnation, and a currency steadily losing its value. This narrative from Japan is unsettling precisely because the trajectory it illustrates, the silent economic creep it embodies, feels uncomfortably, chillingly close to the path the United States appears to be treading. For many decades, Japan wasn't just a global player. It was hailed as the very embodiment of the future. Its gleaming high-speed bullet trains symbolized unparalleled efficiency. Its relentless innovation churned out cutting-edge technology that redefined industries, and its people were celebrated as some of the most industrious and dedicated on Earth. Indeed, throughout the booming 1,980 seconds, a palpable sense of apprehension permeated American society, as many genuinely believed that Japan's economic juggernaut was on the verge of eclipsing the United States entirely. That future, however, never materialized. Instead of triumph, Japan quietly entered a prolonged economic malaise, something far more insidious and enduring than a typical recession. It became a slow, glacial economic freeze, often referred to as the lost decades, a profound stagnation that has now persisted for more than 30 years. The poignant irony is that today, this same struggling Japan stands as the largest foreign holder of US government debt, a nation that props up American finances even as its own domestic economy valiantly battles for its very survival. Thus, the critical question before us is no longer an abstract academic exercise. It is an urgent, existential inquiry. Is Japan's experience a stark, undeniable warning sign for the United States, a preview of America's own destiny? Or does America possess some inherent, fundamental difference that will allow it to navigate these perils unscathed? To truly grapple with this, we must cast our minds back to the genesis of Japan's remarkable ascent. The late 20th century saw Japan emerge as an economic force that seemed utterly unstoppable. Its economy, meticulously rebuilt from the ashes of World War II, roared to life with a vigor that captivated the world. Japanese manufacturing prowess became legendary, dominating global markets as impeccably engineered cars, groundbreaking electronics, and sophisticated technology flooded every corner of the planet. By the late 1980 seconds, Japan had transcended mere wealth. It had succumbed to a dangerous sense of invincibility and overconfidence. Asset prices soared into the stratosphere, utterly detached from any underlying economic reality. Real estate in cities like Tokyo reached genuinely insane valuations. At one astonishing point, the collective value of all the land within Tokyo's city limits was reportedly greater than the entirety of all land in the state of California. Then, inevitably, the immense bubble burst. Stock markets plummeted with brutal efficiency. Property prices crashed, wiping out generations of accumulated wealth, and Japan's vaunted banks found themselves drowning in an ocean of irrecoverable bad loans. Japan was confronted with an agonizing moment of truth, a pivotal crossroads. It could have opted for the painful but ultimately cleansing path, allowing systemic failures, accepting bankruptcies, meticulously cleaning up its financial system, and embarking on a difficult but necessary reset. Or it could choose the more politically expedient, seemingly less painful route, simply delaying the inevitable reckoning. Japan, tragically, chose delay. In a desperate bid to avert a full-blown financial collapse, successive Japanese governments unleashed unprecedented waves of government spending. They poured trillions of yen into massive stimulus packages, initiated countless public works projects, some of dubious necessity, and flooded the economy with artificially cheap money. Initially, these measures appeared to work, staving off the immediate disaster. But a perverse pattern soon emerged. With each passing year, the underlying economic growth became incrementally weaker, while the nation's colossal debt load grew exponentially larger. Japan didn't experience a spectacular crash. Instead, it slowly, imperceptibly stalled. Wages stagnated for an entire generation. Productivity gains vanished, and young people found their opportunities diminishing with each passing decade. Year after year, Japan found itself borrowing ever more, not to invest in growth, but merely to prevent things from getting catastrophically worse. Today, Japan's government debt stands at a staggering figure, over 250% of its entire national economy, the highest ratio among any major developed nation. And it is precisely at this juncture that Japan's story transforms from a distant cautionary tale into an immediate, dangerous blueprint for America. Because that very same logic of debt-fueled delay, that addiction to seemingly consequence-free spending, is now unmistakably driving U.S. economic policy. Let's fast forward to the present day. Japan's currency, the yen, has plunged to levels not witnessed in decades, triggering alarm bells across global financial markets. Why this dramatic collapse? Because Japan is caught in an inescapable trap, a monetary policy dilemma of its own making. If the Bank of Japan were to raise interest rates, as central banks typically do to combat inflation and strengthen a currency, the servicing costs of its already astronomical national debt would explode, potentially triggering a sovereign debt crisis. However, if it continues to keep rates artificially low, as it has for years, investors will inevitably flee the depreciating currency, further weakening it. So, Japan made a quiet, painful decision: sacrifice the strength of its currency to protect the integrity of its deeply indebted financial system. While a weaker yen might offer some temporary relief to Japan's powerful export sector, it exacts a brutal toll on its own citizens. For the average Japanese consumer, life gradually and insidiously becomes harder. The cost of imported food skyrockets, energy prices spiral upwards, and the hard-earned savings they meticulously accumulated slowly but surely lose their purchasing power. There are no dramatic headlines of panic, no widespread social unrest, just a relentless, quiet erosion of living standards. Now, turn your gaze to the United States. The U.S. national debt has recently surged past an astonishing $34 trillion. This isn't merely emergency debt accumulated during a crisis. It has become a structural, seemingly permanent feature of the federal budget. The interest payments alone on this colossal debt are rapidly becoming one of the single largest expenditures within the entire federal budget, crowding out vital investments in infrastructure, education, or defense. And precisely like Japan, America's economic solvency hinges precariously on one critical factor: the maintenance of perpetually low interest rates. Should rates be forced higher, the implications are dire. More taxes would be required from American citizens to cover ballooning interest costs. Even more borrowing would become necessary simply to pay previous debts. The nation's fiscal flexibility to respond to future crises or invest in growth would be severely curtailed. And here lies a crucial, often overlooked twist in this unfolding drama. Japan is not just a warning. It is the largest foreign times holder of U.S. government debt. This means Japan's deepening economic crisis and America's escalating debt problem are not separate phenomena. They are inextricably connected. If Japan's economy continues to weaken, the U.S. will undoubtedly feel the ripple effects. Conversely, if the United States were to stumble economically, Japan would feel the tremors even more acutely, given its immense financial stake in American stability. This isn't abstract economic theory. It is the harsh, interconnected reality of global finance. Here's the profoundly uncomfortable truth, the aspect of Japan's story that nobody particularly enjoys discussing. Japan didn't succumb to its economic predicament because of malicious actors, corrupt leadership, or fundamentally flawed intentions. Japan simply times-aged asterisk, a demographic shift, slow but inexorable, gradually throttled its economic dynamism. Fewer young workers entered the labor force, while a growing wave of retirees placed increasing demands on social services and healthcare. This imbalance led to more government spending without a corresponding increase in the productive capacity of the economy. Debt, it turns out, is a manageable burden, even a tool for growth. When a population is expanding, vibrant, and capable of generating future tax revenues, it becomes a toxic, corrosive force when populations begin to shrink and age, as the base of taxpayers dwindles while the demands for social support escalate. Now, reflect on the United States. The massive baby boomer generation is transitioning into retirement, creating immense pressure on entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. Healthcare costs are exploding at an unsustainable rate. America's workforce, too, is undeniably aging. This demographic headwind means that even modest economic growth will struggle to keep pace, making the national debt feel heavier, more burdensome, with every passing year. Japan tragically learned this lesson far too late. America, by all indications, is only just beginning to truly feel its pervasive effects. Now, for a glimmer of hope, a crucial distinction. The United States is not a carbon copy of Japan. America still possesses several profound and inherent advantages that could potentially steer it away from Japan's fate. The US dollar maintains its unparalleled status as the world's primary reserve currency, granting America extraordinary financial leverage and borrowing capacity. A steady stream of immigration continues to infuse the American workforce with new talent, fresh ideas, and demographic vitality, unlike Japan's largely closed borders. America remains a global powerhouse of innovation, with its vibrant tech sector and entrepreneurial spirit constantly driving productivity gains and creating new industries. Its deep and flexible capital markets are unmatched globally, offering resilience and adaptability in times of stress. While Japan primarily borrowed from its own citizens and institutions, the US has the unique ability to borrow from the entire world. This crucial difference undeniably buys America precious time, an extended window of opportunity. But time itself is a double-edged sword. It becomes exceedingly dangerous if it is squandered. Japan famously used its time to consistently delay necessary, painful reforms. America, ominously, now finds itself standing at precisely the same crossroads, facing identical choices. Japan's story, ultimately, is not one of dramatic sudden collapse. It is, in many ways, something far more chilling and insidious, a narrative of slow, relentless decline. There was no chaos, no spectacular financial implosion that would have shocked the nation into action. Instead, there was merely a gradual, imperceptible erosion of opportunity, an increasing burden for each successive generation. The true warning Japan offers America isn't that its economy will suddenly crash in a dramatic fashion. The warning is that it might simply, quietly fade away, losing its vibrancy and dynamism over decades. And once that slow fade truly takes hold, once the economic spirit has been sapped, there is no easy, quick, or painless way back. Japan provides us with an unvarnished preview of the future that awaits an economy built relentlessly on debt and willfully blind to the profound implications of its own changing demographics. The United States still has a choice, a chance to learn and adapt, but that window of opportunity will not remain open forever. So, I urge you to ask yourself, is Japan merely a distant warning sign on the horizon? Or is it, in fact, an uncomfortable preview of America's own impending reality? If this reflection has stirred your thoughts, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing for more insights, and most importantly, tell me in the comments below, will America learn from the silent struggles of Japan, or are we destined to tragically repeat its most profound mistakes? You're watching Money and Economic Currents. See you in the next video, where the real economic stories unfold.